I'm,
Not today.
I'm wondering if you could maybe clarify a term he uses, positive versus negative prehensions.
Yeah, so we experience moment by moment the entire universe. And for the purposes of actualizing a coherent, harmonious, unique perspective on that universe, a lot of the feelings and the prehensions that are streaming in from the past environment the volume needs to be turned down. They need to be negatively prehended so that we can then emphasize what matters to us and what we find valuable as an ingredient in the unified, harmonious perspective that we're trying to achieve. Now, what's important to note here is that just because we negatively prehend one of these feelings that's streaming in, it still contributes to
Yeah.
the emotional tone of our final experience,
Yeah.
right? So it's not just being eliminated.
The reason I brought it up is because what I understood him to be proposing is almost like an inclusion by exclusion. And I like your characterization of turning the volume down. That's a good way, I think, of picturing what he's talking about because, it enters into as a way of being not relevant, basically.
That's right. Yeah. He even talks about negative prehensions leaving a scar. We might forget, but that forgotten memory is still functioning in the unconscious. And so it's almost like there's a whole theory of
Mm.
trauma here and repression.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to these negative prehensions.
I was gonna try and draw parallels between psychology and what these processes that actual occasions are doing. And you use the idea of unconscious is great. Does Whitehead get specific with his own psychology emerging from his model?
As in, does he develop his own psychology out of his metaphysics?
Or use the like an isomorphic structure of actual occasions in human beings?
Yeah, I mean, so I mentioned William James as an important influence on Whitehead earlier, and in some sense, Whitehead is taking James's psychology and drawing out its cosmological implications. And James does that himself, especially in his last work, A Pluralistic Universe. But Whitehead's systematizing James's psychology and unpacking all of its metaphysical ingredients that with James, it's like you get the baked cake and I think it tastes great. But Whitehead's reversing the process and saying, okay, well, here's all the ingredients that went into that cake, and here's the order you need to mix them together. Here's what the universe has to be like in order for William James's psychology to make sense. And so Whitehead didn't really need to develop his own psychology because it's already there. I mean, in some sense, Whitehead's cosmology developed out of James's psychology. So, but William James was also an important influence on Carl Jung. And so there's a way that I think we can very easily apply Whitehead's process philosophy to deepen and enrich our understanding of Carl Jung's analytic or depth psychology and the whole notion of the unconscious, collective unconscious, archetypes. Like